Congratulations, in a way, for Turkey Shoot.
Yeah, I knew there'd be a catch.
Yes, there'd have to be a caveat. I'm wondering whether congratulations should be in inverted commas. Jon Hewitt, why remake Turkey Shoot, one of the most notorious fiascos in Australian cinema history?
Well, apart from that reason, Tony Ganane, the producer of the original, I've always been a fan of his and looked up to him as an Australian filmmaker for many years. And he was looking at his back catalogue going, I want to make a movie with you one of these days. What in the back catalogue do you reckon you'd want to remake? Because that might be an easier thing for us to put together. And Belinda and I, my wife, who we make our films together, we trawled the back catalogue and decided on Turkey Shoot. It was a toss-up between Turkey Shoot and Thirst, the vampire film, but we've got our own vampire project that'll hopefully be my next film. So we decided on Turkey Shoot. And also, I'm a huge fan of the original Turkey Shoot, even though I understand it's a product of its time and it's not some, it's not Citizen Kane. And I'm also a huge fan of Brian Trenchard-Smith, the Australian expatriate filmmaker now living in LA. And it just seemed like an ideal film that you could, reinvent in 2015 or 2014, that could resonate with an audience. Well, on one level, it's just a straight-ahead genre film, an action film, but on another level, something with a bit of political meat on its bones, a few social comments to make, stuff like that.
There's a bit of a satirical edge to it with the reality
bit of a satirical
TV
edge,
angle
yeah, all
and
that
so
stuff.
forth. I'm actually wondering why you did actually dial up the humour a bit more. It's mainly confined to the TV presentation of the Turkey Shoot in the movie.
We wanted to play the movie very straight. I didn't want to make an homage to schlock like Hobo with a Shotgun or movies like that. And perhaps a straight remake of the film would have read that way as well, because Turkey Shoot is charming now because it's incredibly camp and overperformed, and I love it for those reasons, but that's not the reason I wanted to remake it. We wanted to make a fast-moving action film on a budget, and so I didn't want this sort of self-referential wink at the audience sort of thing. But we definitely did want to have a satirical edge, and we wanted to speculate about things like why wars are fought now, and what's reality television actually doing. It's only a matter of time if it isn't happening somewhere already in an entertainment format where people are going to die on camera for entertainment. At the moment, the news media and YouTube have the franchise on live death on television. But in 5 years' time, there'll be a Turkey Shoot on television, I think, for absolutely sure.
Now, why did you bother releasing this in the cinemas? It strikes me as the kind of film that would do really nicely if it went straight to DVD, straight to download.
The financial and business logic of making Turkey Shoot at all is that we're making a movie that spoke the universal language of genre for an international audience. We make English language product in Australia. If I can get away from calling films art and say they're a product, we make that in Australia. So we've got a very large world market, and that's where the real money to be made out of filmmaking in Australia is. Anybody that makes a movie in Australia purely for the domestic market, then they're not making it for any sort of sound fiscal reasons. There's other stuff going on. This was a film financed in the real world. There's no soft money in the film, no government money. So we needed to be relatively fiscally responsible, make it for a very, very low budget, and make sure it delivered the goods on that purely generic level where somebody in China, somebody in Japan, somebody in Germany, somebody in Australia could go, this is a cool action film where Dom kicks ass,
John, just to deal with the harsh realities, the film has been out about a week. It hasn't done...
Oh, no. Okay, but answering your question, why did we release it in the cinema? The main reason is that as part of financing at the moment in Australia, you're sort of impelled to make a film for a theatrical release.
So it has to be released theatrically?
Yes, it has to be released theatrically. Personally, being an old exhibitor and distributor, the writing has been on the wall for pretty much all films for about a decade, but certainly Australian films, theatrically, it's a completely different world now than it was only a few years ago. As far people have got so many other avenues to see a movie that the reason they go to the cinema now is to see either a tentpole franchise film, a blockbuster, or a tentpole art house film. All the other sorts of movies that had theatricals only 5 years ago, they just all don't even go to cinemas anymore. But every Australian film does, because we're sort of impelled to do it. Because of the producer offset and satisfying various things like that.
Is that where this film's going to, make its dough on disc and download?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that where your market is?
Yeah, I mean, like going forward, like what the Mule has just done is the perfect example. I mean, in an ideal world, Turkey Shoot would have had a series of special event screenings like at MIF, film festival screenings where you really focus whatever theatrical audience you might have into a couple of special event screenings. You get all the press, you get all that sort of vibe going, and you hit VOD, DVD, digital download, streaming. You hit all those other platforms at once, day and date, and hopefully, if you're savvy enough and if it works well enough, it's day and date with its release in the United States.
Right. So, have you already sold this internationally? This film?
Well, it wasn't screened. It debuted at the AFM in November. It's sold a bunch of territories, but we're still in negotiation for the UK and the US. I mean, it's obviously going to sell. It's a no-brainer for those territories.
And you're talking about DVD and download sales. You're not talking about theatrical.
I'm not talking about theatrical
Right.
for a film like this.
Yes.
I mean, America doesn't pretend. No American distributor pretends to even go there anymore. I mean, there are movies starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Robert De Niro that don't do theatrical now. I mean, they just don't even go there. They have a couple of event screenings and out on VOD and platforms like that. It's just the way of the future.
Jon Hewitt, describe yourself as a filmmaker.
Well, I mean, I've been lucky enough to make 6 feature films in Australia, but I've never had a career as a filmmaker. If that's what you need to describe yourself as a filmmaker, I've always had a day job. Sort of digging ditches or working in cinemas or just being a normal schlep. I've never really had the opportunity to make a living out of being a filmmaker. So I've had to find other ways of doing it. But yeah, I consider myself somebody who attempts to make movies in Australia in some sort of sensible, business-like way that have ambitions to be something else as well, to be adventurous, to make political comment. I like to make edgy genre. I mean,
Sure.
That's the medium in which I like those sort of recognisable, relatively easy to understand in any international sort of forum stories that can play to like a Chinese audience, and once they're watching it, they can go, "Oh, there's lots of good action," but or sex or violence or guns going off, cars chases, whatever you need. But there's also something else going on, like, say, in Turkey Shoot, they're going, "Oh, is this a comment on where we are at the moment as the way the media is manipulating the world? Like, why are we at war in Iraq? Is it for the benefit of the sovereignty of countries, or is it for the benefit of Fox News and Google through YouTube, which is where everybody is watching the war? And every time you watch a YouTube video or something, Google gets some money."
So you always raise your own finance for your films?
Well, no, Tony Ganane produced this film,
Right.
so he put together the finance for Turkey Shoot, and I mean, amazingly, he put it together in the international sort of business world. There's no soft money in the film, sort of thing, so all the money in Turkey Shoot has to be sort of earned back, else people will be unhappy because they will have lost money.
Is the way you make films intended to be a statement about the general filmmaking firmament in Australia? It seems to be.
No, I'm not rebelling against anything. I mean, I have been lucky enough to receive, like, for instance, a movie like X and a movie like Acolytes, both had a fair degree of government finance in them. But I like to think that they also returned a little bit of money as well. I come from exhibition and distribution. I worked for 20 years selling tickets at the Brighton Bay and the Longford and cinemas like that in Melbourne, and the Academy Twin in Sydney. You know, when you're making chalk tops and showing people to their seats and cleaning up their trash and putting ads in papers and trying to get them to see the movie, I just can't help but think of movies as a product that, on one level, is a product that I have to find an audience to come and watch. Like, otherwise they don't exist. Unless somebody's watching them, movies don't exist. So I just can't help but think that way, because that's just the sort of animal I am. I like to think that I make fiscally responsible movies. And, you know, like Turkey Shoot was made on a very low budget, but it possibly didn't deserve to be made on a higher budget. Maybe a little higher it could have, but, you know, like I don't... I like to think that I'm being socially responsible in the expenditure of money for my dreams as a filmmaker.
Are you going to tell me how much Turkey Shoot cost to make?
It cost under $1 million.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's not a bad looking film for less than $1 million.
I think it's an incredible looking film for under $1 million. I mean, I've made films that are over $1 million, and I know what you can do. And we shot it very quickly, 15 days.
Yeah. Do you want someone to come along and say, Jon Hewitt, been looking at your little movies, love them, here's $15 million, go away and make a slasher film?
Absolutely, I'd love that. But I mean, it's never going to happen. But
well, you don't know these days.
Yeah, but you know, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth for that to happen to me now. I'd love to go and sort of hang. If I was 25, going to Hollywood and living the dream would be nice. But $1 million is still a load of money, an obscene amount of money. You know, I think I've said it to you before. You give it to somebody like the Wayside Chapel or Father Bob or something, and literally save the lives of 1,000 people. You know, so I just have to be responsible in the expenditure of that money, because I mean, even at a low budget level, films are still really expensive to make.
Now, Viva Bianca
Yep.
is an Australian actress who has a very high profile because she's in Spartacus,
Yep.
very, very successful
Uh-huh.
American TV series. How do you get her to star in your little cheap genre movies?
Well, it's like, you know, how do you get anybody sort of... We've got a personal connection to Viva. She was the star of X, which is the previous film that Lizette Atkins and I and Belinda made. Lizette was involved in Turkey Shoot as a associate producer with Tony. Yeah, she did us a favour because she liked the script. I mean, being an actress, you don't often get the opportunity to play a sort of strong, kick-ass sort of female role. So that it was immediately attractive to her as an actor, and she's a friend. Her dad scored the film for us. Cezary Skubishevsky is Viva's father, and so it was a bit of a family affair in that way. We've known Cezary for years. We've known Viva for years. She had a nice experience making X, even though it was a very tough film for all of us to make. But she had a nice experience, and the film's pretty cool. And so is this. You know, I think Turkey Shoot's pretty cool, even though a lot of film critics, possibly even yourself, Jim, don't feel the same way about it.
I gave it 2.5. I gave it 2.5
out of 3.
2.5 out of 5.
Oh, bloody hell!
But it's more than some have given.
Sitting on the fence. That's not like you.
Yeah, I think it would have benefited maybe a little bit from 1 or 2 TV ads. I still reckon that I think we're in disagreement here, but I think one of the big problems we have at the moment is not enough forewarning for Australian films. I think that if something...
Oh, you're talking about its performance at the Australian box office?
Yeah.
I mean, Turkey Shoot couldn't do any business. It was on one screen in every capital city, and most of those screens, like it was on a sort of a suburban multiplex in Sydney, a suburban multiplex in Adelaide, had a couple of really sweet screens in Melbourne, Jam Factory and the Nova, but it can't do any business. Not any real business. Oh, sure, people went to see it, but not real business. It had already done its business. It, you know, like 700 people at MIF and a few hundred people at Monster Fest. You know, special event screenings. It's a double feature at the Astor in a few weeks. You